My fiancée said, "My ex just needs a place to stay." Then she gave him our bedroom, calling it temporary. I took the couch one night, then took my keys, my piece, and the ring. If he needed shelter, he can keep the consequences and the bride too. My fiancée said, "My ex just needs a place to crash for a few days. Don't be jealous, okay?" The way she said it, half teasing, half warning, made it sound like a test I wasn't allowed to fail. I'm not a jealous man. I'm Jake, 32, IT consultant, allergic to drama and raised to believe trust is a form of respect. So I said fine. I even helped Ryan carry his duffel bag in. 3 days later, that temporary stay turned into him sleeping in our bedroom while I took the couch. My couch, with the spring that digs into your ribs like a moral lesson. It started small. Olivia giggling at her phone, muttering, "It's just a meme." Then whispered phone calls after midnight, perfume trails that weren't hers, a wine glass left out with 2 lipstick marks. One evening I came home early to find candlelight flickering across our dining table. My plates, my wine, my seat. Her laughter hit first, then her voice. "You don't mind, right? He's just tired." That night, lying on the couch listening to them whisper through the wall, I realized I wasn't living with my fiancée anymore. I was renting space in her love stories post-credits scene. The next few days felt like living in a badly written sitcom where I was the punchline nobody cared about. Ryan settled in with the comfort of a house cat who'd found the warmest spot. He'd pad around shirtless in the mornings, hair damp from my shower, sipping coffee from my mug. The one Olivia bought me with "Best Fiancé Ever" printed across it. The irony wasn't lost on me. Olivia kept repeating the same line like a mantra. "He's going through a lot, babe. Show some empathy." I didn't ask what a lot meant. The answer was probably something poetic like a breakup that was technically 2 years ago. Instead, I nodded, bit my tongue, and told myself this was temporary. But every time I heard Ryan's laugh in our kitchen or saw his sneakers by the door, that word lost a little more meaning. I started noticing how the air changed when I walked into a room. Olivia's phone would tilt away, screens locked mid-message. Their conversations paused, like someone had pressed mute on a remote. Once, I caught her wearing a hoodie that wasn't mine. Oversized, faded, and smelling faintly of a men's cologne I didn't own. When I asked, she smiled sweetly. "Oh, Ryan left it on the chair. It's comfy." Evenings turned into theater. Olivia and Ryan on the couch, heads close, whispering jokes I wasn't invited to. I'd retreat to my desk under the pretense of work stuff, though mostly I was just staring at the same spreadsheet for an hour. The silence of the keyboard felt less humiliating than the sound of their laughter. My friends didn't know what to say. When they dropped by for a quick beer, they'd exchange awkward looks, as if stepping into a live experiment about male tolerance thresholds. "You're actually okay with this?" one of them asked quietly when Olivia went to the kitchen. "I'm trying to be," I said. "Trying to be what?" "A doormat." Stung, but I couldn't even argue. Somewhere between love and politeness, I'd lost the script. Then came the dinner. Olivia's mother insisted on hosting a family get-together, something about pre-wedding bonding. I didn't want to go, but Olivia said, "It'll look weird if you don't show up. Everyone's expecting you." So I went, because that's what supportive fiancés do. We sat at a long table in her parents' house, surrounded by laughter, wine glasses clinking, and Ryan. Yes, Ryan. Sitting across from me like he belonged there. Her mother doted on him. "So good to see you again, dear. You always made Olivia laugh." I watched my fiancé beam like a nostalgia commercial, and my stomach turned. Halfway through dinner, her cousin made a toast to the modern couple who proves love can survive anything. Olivia laughed, flushed from wine, and added, "Jake's such a nice guy. He even lets my ex stay with us. Guess he knows he can't do better." The table erupted in laughter. Someone pulled out a phone, filming, of course, because public humiliation apparently needs evidence now. Ryan chuckled awkwardly, looking down, but not enough to defend me. I stared at my plate, feeling the heat crawl up my neck. The polite smile I'd practiced all evening cracked into dust. Her father cleared his throat, muttered something about young people's humor. But the damage was done. I excused myself, claiming a work call, though we all knew it was a lie. I stood outside under the porch light, hands trembling, trying to breathe through the mixture of rage and shame that tasted like iron. That was the exact moment my patience ended. Not in a shout, not in a slammed door, but in quiet, perfect stillness. I realized I'd been negotiating my own dignity away one polite nod at a time. When Olivia came outside 10 minutes later, she found me leaning against my car. "Jake, come on, don't be dramatic," she said, swaying slightly from the wine. "Was that supposed to be a joke?" I asked. "Everyone was just laughing. You take things too seriously." "Yeah," I said softly. "I think that's my problem. I took us seriously." She rolled her eyes, tossed her hair, and went back inside, shouting something about me needing to lighten up. The sound of laughter resumed behind her. The same laughter that used to make me feel lucky, now echoing like applause at my own funeral. Driving home alone that night, the empty passenger seat beside me looked like a verdict. I didn't yell, didn't cry. I just started planning. Because once you've been mocked in public by the person who promised to love you, the only thing left is quiet calculation. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on the couch staring at the ceiling, listening to the muffled soundtrack of my own replacement. Laughter, footsteps, the creak of a bed I'd paid for. Every sound was a nail tapping into the coffin of what I thought we were. At some point, around 2 a.m., I heard Olivia whisper, "Shoo, he's asleep," followed by more laughter. She wasn't wrong. I was asleep, just not in the way she meant. A part of me had been asleep for months, dreaming of loyalty that didn't exist. Now I was awake, and everything was painfully clear. The anger didn't burn hot anymore. It cooled into something heavier, denser. Resentment has a quiet shape. It sits in your chest like a stone you can't swallow. I stared into the dark and realized I didn't want revenge or shouting matches. I wanted my peace back. I wanted silence in my own home. By sunrise, I had a plan. It wasn't complicated. I got dressed for work earlier than usual, took a last look at the apartment, and left before either of them stirred. At the locksmith's on Main Street, the clerk didn't ask questions, just made a copy of my keys while whistling to the radio. I paid in cash. Then I called Ethan, an old college friend who now worked as a family attorney. "Morning, Jake," he said, yawning. "Everything okay?" "Depends on your definition," I replied. "You still handle cohabitation disputes?" "Yeah." "Why?" "Because I think I'm about to have one." He didn't press for details, just told me to email him the lease and a few photos proving I owned the bulk of the furniture. "If her name's not on the lease, you're golden. Don't do anything stupid, and don't confront her yet." I promised I wouldn't, and for once I meant it. That day at work, no one noticed anything off. I fixed printers, answered tickets, drank coffee. The normalcy was strangely soothing. Every click of my keyboard was a reminder that I still had control over something. I scheduled a deep cleaning for the apartment, emailed my landlord about a potential roommate transition, and ordered new locks for delivery by Friday. By the time I drove home, the plan was airtight. When I walked in, the place smelled like cheap perfume and takeout. Olivia was on the couch. My couch, scrolling through her phone. Ryan wasn't there, thankfully. She looked up with that practiced, innocent smile that used to melt me. "Hey, did you get groceries?" she asked. I glanced at the suitcase in the hallway. It wasn't there yesterday. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Just not the kind you unpack." Her brow furrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You'll see." I walked past her to the bedroom, our bedroom, and started packing my essentials. Clothes, documents, a few sentimental things. She followed me, confusion turning to irritation. "Jake, what are you doing?" "Making room." "For what?" "For reality." She laughed, sharp and defensive. "You're being dramatic again. You said you were fine with Ryan staying." "I said a few days," I corrected. "It's been 19. He's had a rough time." "So have I said, folding a shirt. "Difference is, I didn't move my ex in to fix it." Her arms crossed. You're seriously overreacting. I turned to face her. Olivia, you mocked me in front of your entire family. You let him sleep in our bed. You didn't even flinch when they laughed at me. If that's not betrayal, I'd hate to see what is. For the first time in weeks, she didn't have a comeback. Just silence, thick and awkward. Then, almost as if to reassert control, she scoffed. You're not actually leaving. Maybe not yet, I said. But you are. I zipped the suitcase shut and walked past her. The living room looked smaller than ever. The framed photos on the shelf, our vacation smiles, her graduation portrait, that stupid couple selfie, felt like props from someone else's movie. I unplugged the router, grabbed my laptop, and looked at her one last time. Ethan will be in touch, I said. You'll hear from him tomorrow. She blinked. Who's Ethan? My lawyer. Her expression fractured, half confusion, half disbelief. You're lawyering up? Over what? Over trespassing. Over public humiliation. Over turning my home into a halfway house for nostalgia. I didn't shout. I didn't slam the door. I just left, suitcase in hand, heart strangely steady. That night, I stayed at a friend's place. He offered a beer, but I declined. I wasn't angry. I was hollowed out. When I lay on his couch, the second couch in this whole miserable saga, it hit me. I'd spent weeks sleeping in discomfort to keep someone else comfortable. That was over. Tomorrow, the locks would change. The documents would be filed. And Olivia would wake up to find her house key no longer worked. The night on the couch wasn't just the end of patience. It was the quiet birth of consequence. The next morning, I didn't bother with small talk or pretense. Olivia sat at the breakfast bar scrolling her phone. Ryan lingering in the doorway like a guest who'd overstayed not just his welcome, but his humanity. I sipped coffee slowly, as though the steam could burn away the memory of all the evenings I'd spent listening to their laughter in my bedroom. Jake, can we talk about last night? Olivia asked, trying the soft, seductive tone that once made me forget all caution. I set my cup down carefully, deliberately, and walked past them to the counter where my keys and wallet sat. Ryan, I said quietly, you've had your stay. It's over. She spun around, eyes wide with outrage. What? You heartless jerk. He has nowhere else to go. You can't just kick him out. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. My calm was louder than any yelling. I walked to the jewelry dish on the counter, lifted my engagement ring off my finger, and held it out to her. Then give him the ring too, I said evenly. He can have the room, the bed, and the bride. Time froze. Ryan's mouth opened, then closed. He looked at Olivia, then at me, then back at the ground as if realizing for the first time that the charade had ended. Olivia's jaw tightened. She laughed, sharp and nervous, trying to fill the silence. Jake, you can't. I can, I interrupted softly. Because you've been living in a world where words have no meaning, promises are jokes, and loyalty is optional. That world ends today. I walked to the front door and opened it wide. The morning sun poured in, spotlighting both of them. You can head out together, I said, voice level, or security can help you pack your things. Olivia's protests faltered. Ryan shuffled to her side, hands in his pockets, looking like a teenager caught sneaking beer from the fridge. She grabbed the ring with a trembling hand, and for a split second I saw the mask slip, the one that had made her so charming, so convincing. The apartment was quiet once they left, except for the faint echo of footsteps fading down the hall. I closed the door, slid the deadbolt, and leaned against it, taking a slow, steadying breath. For the first time in weeks, it smelled like me again. I poured myself a glass of whiskey, sat on the couch, my couch, and stared at the empty space where their laughter had lived. The glass warmed my hand, but it didn't burn. Relief tasted strange and sweet, mixed with a hint of disbelief. My phone buzzed. A dozen missed texts from Olivia, another from Ryan, one from her mother. I ignored them, let them stew. They'd spent weeks shaping a narrative where I was the unreasonable one. Let them think. Let them panic. The truth was finally mine to hold. An hour later, I met up with a buddy at our usual bar. He shook his head, glass in hand. Man, you put up with that too long. I smiled faintly, swirling the amber liquid. I didn't put up with it, I said. I waited. I waited until the apartment was empty of love and full of truth. Until the guest realized he wasn't welcome. Until the person who promised to be my partner forgot what that meant. He raised an eyebrow, taking a sip. That sounds poetic. Yeah, I said, leaning back, voice low. Poetic is better than crying on the couch while someone else sleeps in your bed. Poetic is better than begging for respect in your own home. Poetic is watching the chaos you allowed finally meet consequences. He laughed, shaking his head. Only you, man. I drained the glass. Outside, the city was waking up, indifferent. Inside, I was finally awake too. The air in the apartment smelled clean. The bed was empty. The couch felt like a throne. And for the first time in a long while, I felt untouchable. Because politeness has its limit, and I had just crossed mine. Tomorrow, I'd make sure the lesson lasted. The next morning, my phone erupted like a shaken soda can. Calls, texts, notifications from every platform imaginable. Her mother, her friends, even a few coworkers I barely knew were reaching out, all in the same breathless chorus. Jake, how could you kick her out? Olivia had apparently spun the story into a tragic romance where I was the villain, the cruel fiancé who turned the home into a prison. I didn't respond, not one word. I brewed a strong coffee, sat at the table, and let the storm rage in silence. Then I did something small, precise, and public. I posted a screenshot on my social media. Olivia's own words, "My ex needs a place to stay. Okay?" And my reply beneath it, calm and questioning, "You sure that's a good idea?" Below the texts, I added a single photo. My couch untouched, the throw neatly folded, and the engagement ring resting on the coffee table. No commentary, no anger, just the truth. The reactions were instantaneous. People shared, commented, and tagged friends. The internet, as it does, became a jury. Within hours, her story of victimhood collided with reality. Strangers were dissecting her texts, pointing out inconsistencies, laughing at the narrative that claimed I was unreasonable. By mid-afternoon, Olivia's phone started blowing up. Calls, messages, DMs. "Can we just talk?" she begged. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I ignored all of it. Instead, I went through the house, reclaiming little things she'd left behind. Her bags, her toiletries, even the wine glasses she'd borrowed from the cabinet. Each item was a reminder that this was my space, my life, and I was finally taking it back. 2 days later, another shock. A fraud alert from my bank. Olivia had tried to charge $1,500 to an old credit card I hadn't used in months. Declined. I didn't call, didn't report her personally. I let the bank handle it. Lessons are better learned when consequences come from the system, not just the person you've wronged. Meanwhile, Ryan vanished. Ghosted. No messages, no explanations. Guess the appeal of free rent and free meals had a natural expiration date. Funny, I thought, how the person who benefited most from the chaos was the first to leave when accountability arrived. Her mom tried calling again, this time with a different tactic. Pleading, begging, trying to negotiate. "Jake, please, can't we fix this?" I didn't answer. My lawyer friend, Ethan, advised me to maintain distance. Let them flail. Let them face the truth themselves. Even Olivia's friends, the ones who had called me heartless and controlling, started receiving their own wake-up calls. Strangers online pieced together timelines, messages, receipts. Her version of events unraveled like a cheap sweater. By the end of the week, the apartment felt lighter, quieter. The couch smelled faintly of my cologne again. The engagement ring was safely stored in a drawer, untouched. My phone was silent. Even her attempts at manipulation, texts, calls, social media posts, had diminished to whispers in the void. And in that silence, I realized something. I hadn't needed to yell, threaten, or fight. I hadn't needed to make a scene. The truth, quiet and patient, had done all the work. I poured myself a whiskey that evening, sat in my living room, and let the city hum outside my windows. The apartment was empty of lies, of laughter that wasn't mine, of stolen attention. I finally had my home back, my space, and most importantly, my dignity. The fallout wasn't messy in the way movies show. There were no shouting matches, no dramatic confrontations. It was just the slow, inexorable clearing of smoke after a fire, leaving only what was real, what belonged to me, and what I would never surrender again. And as the sun set, casting long shadows across the empty room, I smiled quietly. Justice didn't need a spotlight. It just needed patience, clarity, and a couch waiting for the person who actually owned it. 3 months later, life had settled into something I hadn't realized I'd been craving. Routine, silence, and control over my own space. The new apartment smelled faintly of cedar and coffee, not cheap perfume and resentment. My mornings started with black coffee and a notebook, evenings with music and a little whiskey. Simple, unhurried, entirely mine. The chaos of the past felt distant, like a bad dream whose edges I could finally touch without wincing. One crisp morning, I wandered into a cafe I hadn't visited in months. I was half expecting normalcy, half expecting ghosts. And then I saw her, Olivia, behind the counter, moving slowly, quietly. No laugh, no gloss of charm, no mask. Her hair fell in strands over her eyes. Her shoulders hunched slightly under the weight of routines that weren't mine to control. Our eyes met for a brief heartbeat. No sparks, no fury, just recognition, and then she looked away. In that moment, I realized I felt none of the anger that had kept me awake nights on my couch. There was only peace. Calm, steady, unshakable. I paid for my coffee, leaving exact change in the jar. Then I slipped a folded note under the tip. Short, simple. Hope you've finally found a home that doesn't depend on who lets you in. No explanation, no flourish, no invitation. Just the truth. I walked out. The door clicked softly behind me. I didn't glance back. The apartment, the cafe, the streets. Everything moved forward without me needing to intervene. For the first time in months, I felt untethered from her world. Free. Dignity intact. Quiet, deliberate, and wholly mine. And this time, the door closed behind me. For good.